They called him Pastor Ben. Tall, soft-spoken, with the kind of voice that made even stubborn people listen. He had a smile that could calm storms and a presence that made you feel safe. Everyone in Kisumu thought he was a godsend. What they didn't know was that Pastor Ben had a secret. You see, Ben had 2 wives. Not divorced, not widowed. 2 wives. At the same time. The first was Miriam, a graceful schoolteacher he married 10 years ago in Kisumu. She was loving, grounded, and fiercely loyal. They had 2 children, little Tendo and his cheeky sister Zuri. They lived in a modest house near the lake, and Miriam believed she was the only queen in Ben's world. But every month, Ben would travel for ministry to Nairobi for 2 weeks. Everyone thought he was spreading the gospel. In truth, he was going to a second home. There, in a gated community in Ronai, lived Sandra, a sharp, stylish businesswoman who ran a cosmetics shop in town. She believed Ben was a traveling evangelist, a man married only to his calling. Sandra was younger, spontaneous, and had just given birth to a baby boy, whom she named Nathan. Each home had pictures of Ben. Each woman thought she knew his heart. But Ben was playing a dangerous game. And time was running out. It started unraveling when Zuri, Miriam's daughter, fell ill and needed treatment at a specialized clinic in Nairobi. Miriam, desperate and anxious, called Ben, who happened to already be in ministry there. He promised to meet her at the hospital and sort everything out. That same day, Sandra was also at the same hospital. Her son Nathan had a cough that wouldn't go away. Ben knew. He knew both of them were there. At the same time. So, he did what any cornered man would do. He ran. But fate had a different plan. While waiting for her appointment, Sandra bumped into a woman with familiar eyes and a familiar nose, the same as her baby's. It was Miriam. They locked eyes, smiled politely, but something felt odd. Then Zuri tugged on Miriam's hand and said, "Mummy, that man on the wall looks like Daddy." On the wall was a framed photo of donors to the hospital. In the center was none other than Pastor Ben, standing next to a woman, Sandra. Miriam froze. Sandra stared. Zuri pointed again, more confidently this time. "That's Daddy. See his tooth? He only has one sharp one at the front like that." Sandra's legs grew weak. Miriam turned slowly to look at her. Ben didn't know yet that the 2 worlds he had worked so hard to keep apart were now colliding. And worse, he didn't know about the 3rd woman. Sandra's voice trembled. "What did your daughter just say?" Miriam blinked, eyes narrowing. "Excuse me." The air between them thickened. Neither woman spoke, but they both turned to the photo again. That unmistakable smile. That same tilted head. And yes, the sharp front tooth. I know this man," Sandra whispered. Miriam crossed her arms. "So do I. He's my husband." The silence cracked. Sandra's mouth parted. "You're what?" "My husband, Ben Otieno. We've been married 10 years. We live in Kisumu." Her voice had changed, sharper now. Sandra's breath caught in her throat. "No, that's not possible. I've been with him for 3 years. He told me he's not married." They stared at each other. For a moment, it was like the world had gone quiet. No coughs, no beeping monitors, no echoing footsteps. Then came a twist. A nurse walked by, glanced at them, and smiled. "Oh, you 2 are his wives," she said cheerfully. "Pastor Ben is such a caring man. He paid for the children's vaccinations last month. Such a blessing." The room spun. Both women, in sync now, turned slowly toward the nurse. Sandra's voice was ice. "He paid for both our children?" Miriam's fists clenched. "Does he work here?" The nurse nodded. "He's part of the hospital board. He comes in often." "Wait, don't tell me he never told you." They didn't answer. The nurse blinked, awkwardly stepping away. That night, Sandra and Miriam sat side by side in Miriam's hotel room. They barely touched their tea. Photos were exchanged. Texts compared. Phone numbers shown. It was real. They were both his wives. And just when they were beginning to process the betrayal, Miriam's phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then picked it up. A woman's voice. "Hello, is this Mrs. Ben Otieno? I'm sorry to disturb you, but I think we might be married to the same man." Miriam froze. Sandra leaned in. The voice on the phone continued, hesitant but clear. My name is Caroline. I met Ben in Eldoret. We've been married traditionally for 6 months. He's currently with me, but something feels wrong. Sandra gasped. 3 wives. Ben had always said he was traveling for ministry. But now it was starting to look like he was running an entire ministry of women. And the worst part, none of them knew the real Ben. Because somewhere in the shadows, Ben had another secret. Miriam put the call on speaker. Caroline, did you say you're married to Ben? Yes. He paid my dowry in March. My parents know him. My neighbors call me Madam Ben. We live in Eldoret. Sandra almost dropped her cup. Miriam rubbed her forehead, trying to make sense of it all. Do you know that Ben has a wife in Kisumu? Silence. Then, no. He told me his wife passed away years ago. Sandra jumped in. And do you know about me? Sandra. Nairobi. We have a baby together. Caroline's voice cracked. What? What do you mean? Miriam's voice had gone quiet now. Caroline, you're not the only one. I've been married to Ben for 10 years. I have 2 children. Sandra here has a son. And now we're talking to you. Dead silence. Then Caroline whispered, Oh my God, I think I'm pregnant. The phone slipped out of Miriam's hand and landed on the carpet. For a moment, nobody moved. The room was still. Sandra stood up and paced, her hands trembling. How did he do this? How did we all fall for it? Miriam shook her head slowly. Because he didn't just lie to us, he played us. Carefully. Like a puppet master. Then, a knock on the hotel room door. 3 soft taps. They looked at each other. Miriam stood. Sandra moved behind her. Slowly, Miriam opened the door. A man stood there. Tall, familiar. Same smile. Same sharp tooth. Ben. His eyes darted between the 2 women in the room. His confident smile faded. Miriam. Sandra. I can explain. But before either could respond, Miriam's phone, still on speaker, blared with Caroline's panicked voice. He just left the house. Ben just told me he had a meeting in Nairobi. Is everything okay? Sandra stepped forward. He was in Eldoret today. Miriam's voice was steady. Ben answered her. Were you just in Eldoret this morning? Ben stammered. I had a quick trip, ministry work. Miriam's eyes burned. Ministry? Or were you tending to wife number 3? He opened his mouth, closed it again, then another twist. From the corridor came a voice, soft, hesitant. Ben, are we going to the meeting, or? A young woman appeared behind him. She looked barely 25. Her belly was showing. Pregnant. Ben turned around, startled. Wait, Clara, go back to the car. Clara's eyes widened as she looked past him and saw Sandra and Miriam standing side by side, jaws tight, arms folded. Ben, she whispered. Who are they? No one spoke. Because now the count was 4. 4 women. 4 lives. And Ben had finally run out of places to hide. For the first time, Ben, the smooth-talking preacher, the man with the answers, looked completely lost. Miriam stepped aside from the door. Come in, Ben. And bring her too. Ben hesitated. Please, let me just explain privately. Sandra cut in. Oh no, Pastor. No more secrets. Not today. Clara stepped in shyly, clutching her handbag and holding her belly like it might shield her from the tension in the room. Ben said he wasn't married. That his wife passed on 5 years ago, she said, eyes darting between the 2 older women. Miriam let out a dry laugh. He must have buried me in his imagination, because I'm still very much alive. Sandra turned to Clara. How far along are you? 5 months. Miriam collapsed into a chair. Sandra sat beside her. Clara leaned against the wall, stunned. Ben stood there like a statue, eyes darting between them all, lips trembling. And then, Miriam's phone rang again. It was Caroline. Are you still there? Her voice came nervous. I just called a cousin who works at an office in Nairobi. She said she saw Ben an hour ago getting into a car at Upper Hill with a young lady. Sandra looked at Clara. That was her. Miriam spoke calmly into the phone. Caroline, Ben is here. With us. And yes, with the young lady. Her name is Clara. She's pregnant. There was a short gasp. Then, can I come to Nairobi? Miriam looked at Ben. That depends. Are you going to run again, Ben? He didn't answer. Instead, He sat down slowly and put his head in his hands. I didn't plan for it to go this far, he mumbled. It started with love, but then each of you filled a space in my life. I couldn't choose. I didn't want to lose any of you. Clara scoffed. You should have told me I was space number 4. Ben looked up, desperate. I was going to fix it. I was going to come clean. I just needed time. Sandra's voice cracked. Time. You needed time. You've had 10 years. Then came the twist none of them expected. Clara reached into her handbag and pulled out a folded letter. Ben told me to mail this next week, she said slowly. He said it was confidential. But now I think, maybe you all should see it. Miriam took it and unfolded the pages. Her eyes scanned quickly. Then she passed it to Sandra. It wasn't a letter. It was a will. In it, Ben had written down properties in different towns, Kisumu, Nairobi, Eldoret, Nakuru. And next to each, names of different women. 4 names. 4 wives. Each one with a child mentioned, including an unborn baby. He wasn't just lying. He was building something. Quietly. Secretly. A kingdom. Ben looked up, defeated. I was trying to build a legacy, he said. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Miriam stood slowly, her voice low and cold. You weren't building a legacy, Ben. You were building a lie. And then Sandra's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She read it, frowned, then turned pale. Ben, she said quietly, who is Joyce? She says she's your first wife from before you became a pastor. Ben's face went blank. Sandra's hand shook as she showed the message. I've been trying to find Ben for years. We were married in 2008. He disappeared with my dowry money. I just saw his photo on a hospital website. Please help me find him. Miriam sat down again, stunned. There's a 5th. Ben stood up suddenly. Okay. That's enough. But Clara stepped in front of him. No, Ben. We haven't even started. The room, thick with tension, had now morphed into a courtroom, Ben in the center, surrounded by the women he thought would never meet. But they had, and now they were plotting. Miriam folded her arms and looked at the other 2 women. We need to talk. Alone. Sandra stood. Yes. Without him. Ben's eyes widened. Wait, you can't just. Clara turned to him with fire in her eyes. Get out, Ben. Before I forget, I'm carrying your child. He opened his mouth, but found no words. For the first time in years, he wasn't in control. Miriam pointed at the door. Go! Ben, clearly outnumbered and exposed, picked up his jacket and walked out slowly, like a man heading for execution. As the door clicked shut behind him, the women didn't waste time. Miriam started. We can't sit around crying. Not anymore. We've been fooled, used, lied to, and I refuse to be anyone's fool again. Sandra's eyes glinted. I say we expose him. Every single version of him. The pastor. The husband. The runaway. Everything. Clara, still young but no longer naive, pulled out her phone. I have pictures of him sleeping. Text messages. Screenshots of all the money he sent me through M-Pesa. He told me never to post him because he was in ministry. She laughed bitterly. I believed him. Miriam nodded. Good. I have our marriage certificate, the kids' birth records, photos, receipts. Sandra smiled. Perfect. I work in media. I know editors. We can drop this on every platform. Let the country know who Pastor Ben really is. But Clara wasn't done. I also think we should call Joyce, the one from the text. They dialed her. She picked up instantly. Her voice was older, worn. Hello, Joyce. This is Sandra. I believe you were once married to a man named Ben Otieno. A long pause, then a heavy sigh. He left me with a child. Took my dowry, disappeared like a ghost. I thought he was dead. I raised our daughter alone. Miriam leaned closer to the speaker. He's not dead. He's very much alive. And still lying. To all of us. There was silence on the line. Then, calmly, Joyce said, Tell me where he is. I'm on my way. Meanwhile, outside the hotel, Ben was pacing by the car, sweating. He had called his assistant, a young man named Peter. Bro, you won't believe what's happening. They all found each other. Kisumu, Nairobi, Eldoret, even Clara. I think they know about Joyce too. Peter groaned. Boss, didn't I tell you to stop juggling fire? You were greedy, man. Now what? I need to disappear. Maybe Tanzania. Lay low for a while. Then Peter asked, and the new girl? Aisha? What do I tell her? Ben froze. What? Aisha. The university student you've been seeing in secret. The one who thinks you're single and promised to marry her after graduation. Ben felt like the ground was slipping. He forgot about Aisha. Peter lowered his voice. Boss, she's pregnant too. Back upstairs, the women were on fire. They were planning a televised exposé. Title: The Pastor of Lies, the women behind the collar. But that wasn't all. Miriam, the strategist, had a better idea. We invite all the women, everyone he's lied to. Then we hold a meeting, not to cry, but to build something bigger. Sandra grinned. A support group? No, Miriam said, eyes gleaming. A movement. For women who've been deceived, hidden and gaslit. We'll name it after the thing that woke us up. Clara gasped. Zuri's words. When she saw his photo at the hospital, all three women said it together. That's Daddy. Outside, Ben's phone buzzed. Another text. From Aisha. I'm at the hotel. Room 304. Can't wait to see you. Ben looked up. Room 304. He was in room 306. His whole life was now 2 doors away from destruction. And someone was about to open the wrong door. Ben's hands were trembling. He stared at Aisha's message, then looked at the hotel room doors. 304, 305, 306. He was sandwiched between the fire he had already started and the fuel that would blow everything up. Aisha can't see them, he muttered to himself. If she walks into that room. He moved fast, but not fast enough, because just as he stepped toward the hallway, a door opened. It was Aisha. Young, beautiful, bright-eyed. She stepped out with her suitcase and a wide smile. Ben, I knew I heard your voice outside, she said, running toward him. He panicked, glanced over his shoulder. The other women hadn't come out yet. Sure, he hissed. Go back in. We can't talk here. Aisha stopped in her tracks. Why? You said we'd finally get to be public today. Just then, the door to room 306 creaked open, and out stepped Joyce. Not Miriam. Not Sandra. Not Clara. Joyce. She had come. She walked right past Ben, not even sparing him a glance, and stood face to face with Aisha. You must be one of his new ones, she said coldly. Aisha blinked. Excuse me. Miriam, Sandra, and Clara spilled out of the room behind her. Ben knew it was over. Aisha looked around in confusion. Who are all these people? Ben, what's going on? Sandra smiled darkly. Let me help. She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. A video started playing, Ben on one knee, proposing to Clara. Another clip, him cuddling Sandra's baby. Another, family photos with Miriam and the kids. And finally, an old photo of Ben and Joyce holding a baby girl. Aisha's face turned pale. No. This can't be real. Ben reached for her. Aisha, please. She slapped his hand away. You told me I was your first real love, she whispered. You said God told you I was your wife. He opened his mouth to explain. She stepped back and screamed, liar, so loud a security guard appeared at the end of the hallway. Joyce turned to the others. We need to report this man. Legally. He's committed bigamy. Fraud. Emotional abuse. Miriam nodded. We'll handle it. Together. But Clara had a better idea. Let's do both. Expose him publicly and deal with him legally. We'll start with The Nation tomorrow morning. Then KTN, Citizen TV, Twitter, TikTok, everywhere. Ben dropped to his knees. Please. I'll lose everything. Joyce, arms folded, replied coldly. You never had anything. You just borrowed our lives and built a lie. Then Aisha, who had been silent, walked up and whispered something in Ben's ear. He looked shocked. He looked terrified. The women watched him crumble. Clara asked, What did you tell him? Aisha looked them in the eyes, calm and steady. I told him I'm not pregnant. I never was. I just wanted to see if he'd fake love me the same way he faked all of you. And guess what? She smiled. He did. Ben couldn't breathe. His world, once carefully arranged like dominoes, had all collapsed, and now every woman was holding a piece of his truth. But there's one more secret, because back in Kisumu, a certain teenage girl was scrolling through her father's old phone and found messages from yet another woman, one who had been sending baby photos. From Mombasa, back in Kisumu, it was a lazy Saturday afternoon. Zuri, Miriam's daughter, was curled up on the couch with her father's old phone. Miriam had handed it to her earlier, saying, "Delete whatever's on there. I don't want to see it again." But curiosity has a way of digging through ashes. Zuri scrolled through photos, texts, and videos. Then she found a folder named Private Ministry. Inside were dozens of messages, most with women. Some were innocent, some were not. But then one thread stood out. It was with a woman named Faith. Zuri tapped. The first message read, "Our baby is growing fast. She has your smile, Ben." Below it, a picture of a chubby-cheeked baby girl in a pink onesie, timestamped 8 months ago. Zuri's heart skipped. Another message followed. "You promised we'd move to Mombasa together after the final crusade. Have you changed your mind?" Zuri's hand shook. She ran to her mother. "Mum, there's another one." Meanwhile, in Nairobi, Sandra was in full media mode. She just finished an interview on a popular morning show titled, "Unmasking Ben Otieno, the Pastor of Broken Promises." Clips had gone viral. Women across Kenya were coming forward. The hashtag Ben the Blesser started trending on TikTok, filled with skits, rants, and even songs mocking his double, now multiple life. In one video, a comedian dressed like Ben was running from a group of women with babies in their arms, yelling "Daddy." But for the real Ben, there was nowhere left to run. He'd been fired from the church board. Sponsors had cut him off. And now, legal documents were on the way. Still, Miriam hadn't told him about the Mombasa woman. Not yet. They were saving that for the final blow. 2 days later, the women met again. This time in Eldoret, a round table of revelation. Miriam, Sandra, Clara, Joyce, Aisha, and now Faith, who had traveled all the way from Mombasa with her 8-month-old daughter. The resemblance to Ben was unmistakable. That same sharp front tooth. Faith was calm, composed. "He told me he was a widower. Said he wasn't ready to be public because of the pain." Miriam nodded. "That's his favorite lie." Clara whispered. "So now it's 6 women?" Sandra replied, "That we know of." Faith looked at them all. "I have his audio recordings. Him confessing that he wanted to start a new life in Mombasa with me and the baby." Joyce smiled for the first time. "Perfect. That's all we need." Clara leaned forward. "So are we ready for the final trap?" Miriam grinned. "Absolutely." They arranged a redemption conference, a fake one, and invited Ben as the surprise guest. It was supposedly hosted by a group called Brothers in Christ Restoration. The venue, a church hall in Nakuru. The bait, that the group wanted to restore his image through a televised testimony and offer him a new start in ministry. Ben, desperate, took the bait. He arrived in a cheap suit, slimmer than before, with a hollow look in his eyes. He was ushered onto stage. The lights went on. The cameras rolled. And then, instead of a crowd of strangers, out walked Miriam, Sandra, Clara, Joyce, Aisha, and Faith. Each took a seat in front of him. No audience. Just them. And the cameras. Ben swallowed hard. Miriam leaned into her mic. "Ben Otieno," she said calmly. "Welcome to your final sermon. We're here to talk about the truth. And this time," she looked at the camera, "you don't get to run." The stage lights bore down on Ben like judgment itself. He sat on a lonely stool, eyes darting between the 6 women now facing him. Each one with a story, each one with a wound that bore his name. The cameras were live. Thousands were watching the stream, on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and even local TV. Hashtag Ben the Blesser was now trending across Africa. This was not a redemption conference. This was a reckoning. Miriam took the lead. "Ben Otieno, you married me in 2014. Paid dowry. Had children. We built a home together. And then you vanished, 2 weeks every month. Said it was ministry. Turns out, you were busy building fake ministries in other women's lives." Sandra followed. "You met me in Nairobi and told me you were God's servant. You prayed for me, preached to me, made me believe I was part of your calling. And you left me with a baby and lies. Clara leaned into her mic. I was 24. Fresh out of campus. You told me God revealed me to you in a dream. I even stopped dating other people because I thought I was chosen. All I got was heartbreak. Joyce's voice shook. You married me first. In 2008. Then vanished. Took my dowry, left me with a baby girl who kept asking why her father never came to Parents' Day. That child is now 16. She's watching this. Faith, from Mombasa, simply said, my daughter will know the truth, and it won't come from your mouth. And Aisha? She smirked. I was never pregnant. I just needed to know how deep your lies would go. And I found out. You would have married me too if I let you. Ben trembled. The camera zoomed in. He opened his mouth to speak, and the words came out weak, like a man drowning. I was lost. I needed love. You each gave me something different. I never wanted to hurt any of you. Joyce snapped. You didn't just hurt us. You used us. And you preached while doing it. Sandra spoke next, her voice strong and clear. This is not just about women you lied to. It's about power, control, and how many men use religion and charm to trap women. Miriam stood and turned to the camera. To every woman watching this isn't just our story. It's yours too. If you've ever been lied to, hidden, manipulated, know this. You are not alone. The audience online exploded with support. Thousands of comments poured in. I was a victim too. This is happening in my church. Thank you for speaking out. Then, without warning, Miriam reached under her chair and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the stage to Ben. These, she said, are the legal documents. We've reported you for bigamy, fraud, and emotional abuse. Your license to preach has been revoked. And the court date is set. Ben blinked, stunned. Faith added, you'll also be paying child support for every single one of your children. Clara smiled sweetly. We've made sure you'll never preach lies again. Ben's shoulders slumped. He wasn't a pastor anymore. He was just a man exposed, broken, cornered by truth. Months later, the 6 women launched an NGO called the Zuri Foundation, named after Miriam's daughter, the child who innocently said the words that began it all. That's Daddy. The foundation helped women escape toxic relationships, educated churches on emotional manipulation, and taught young girls how to spot predators who hide behind pulpits and titles. Their slogan, no more secrets, no more silence. As for Ben, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to all 6 women. From a man with many homes, he now had one. A small, cold cell with no wife, no title, and no pulpit. Dear listeners, please like, subscribe, and share for many stories like this one.